Hey, I'm Geoff, and I am at PAX East, and we're going to talk about a game I made called Sumer. Sumer is a digital board game that takes real-time elements of competitive action games and combines them with the elegance of Euro-style board games. So not only are you racing your friends, you're doing that as you compete in auctions and while you are trying to gather resources and you're preparing sacrifices to your goddess Inanna. So it has a lot of mechanics like worker placement and tile laying and auctions, as I said before, but it is an action video game. Well, narratively, the main objective is to worship Inanna and have her select you to be the one to rule Sumer. And mechanically, that means that you want to get the most favor. So she rewards favor for completing rituals. You give her, you bring up like sacrifices of pots and barley and beer that you've crafted, that you've like herded goats so that you can afford to pay merchants so that they will like give you these things. And then when you lay them on her altar and fulfill her rituals, she rewards you with favor, and at the end of a game, which is sort of representing a ritualistic competition, she chooses who will be the ruler of Sumer. I mean, Sumer is the name of the land. It's ancient Iraq. It's also known like as Mesopotamia. It is the land of the Sumerians, and it's very much like a board game name, and yeah, that's where I came from. I have been working on games for about 5 years now. I actually met my team while we were students at the NYU Game Center, so we were developing a variety of board games and video games there, and we teamed up to work on this as a master's thesis. We wanted to explore how board game mechanics could be introduced into the video game space and see where that design space led us. I've been working for 5 years on this. Mostly do design and creative direction on Sumer. I've also dabbled with tabletop role-playing games quite a bit, and I guess like educational games have been a big background of mine, and you'll see that influence in Sumer as well. I'm a former anthropologist, and I am also really into educational work, and so we've taken time to speak with historians and meet with anthropologists and archaeologists about Sumerian culture. You see that in the art as well as in the text and the narrative. Well, my first video game, well, I mean, everyone's first video game is, I don't know. Mine was probably King's Quest, and I love the narratives of that. And there were a lot of other games I played on like Apple computer, but I think I first got obsessed with games like Pokemon and then later on like Fallout and the Elder Scrolls games. I liked building my own narratives, but my big foray into gaming was honestly Dungeons and Dragons. That's where my passion has always laid, with like building narratives as well, but also creating like collaborative storytelling experiences and being able to share things. You see that a bit in Sumer, where we're like sharing the story of an ancient culture that hasn't ever really been explored in multimedia, that you don't really see a lot of pop culture about ancient Sumerians. A variety of things, first being our huge passion for board games. We love especially Euro-style board games, but board games in general, and we wanted to, as I noted before, take those elements and merge them with the video games that we love, especially like local multiplayer video games where you're competing with friends and you're nudging them and you're heckling them, but you're also like having this wonderful time of competition. But we were also inspired by some specific games. There is a game that was made for the Atari called Mule, where you are buying plots of land on Mars and you have a bidding mechanic, very similar to the one that we use in Sumer, where you move up and down on a track and increase and decrease the amount that you're willing to pay or buy a resource at. And so we found that Mule was one of the only games that had taken this idea of board games and brought it into video games in a way that used physics and real-time systems. Well, besides Mule, which I, of course, just mentioned, we would also say The Yog, which is a game by Damien Sommer and Emily Carroll, and that's a collaborative storytelling game. Mechanically, it's very different from The Yog, but in The Yog, you are creating a story as you just make decisions on how you want to spend the last few weeks in your town. And then the Yog comes, it's this disaster, and it ruins the town, and then based on the decisions that you made, you have these stats that you sort of apply to decisions. You take on roles in the cleanup and the restoration, and it creates a story together. And so we were inspired by that collaboration, that like innovation of what a local multiplayer game could be. Platforming games like Towerfall, especially Samurai Gun, this sort of action platforming local multiplayer, and then some of the great Euro-style games and board games in general. But Caelus, one of the first worker placement games, as well as a variety of others like Castles of Burgundy, Agricola, where if you play Sumer, you'll notice that like goats increase, and we like have taken some mechanics specifically from games like that, like Agricola. We're absolutely inspired by Sumerian culture, right? I mean, that's a direct influence. We were blown away by it. But quite a few of us are really interested in history, and we love Greek mythology. We like reading about historical times, but we don't really see those all of those cultures represented in our media. And so we thought, why not focus on something that isn't explored as often? So we took Sumerian and we pulled a lot from their text. One of the big things that people are aware of is the Epic of Gilgamesh, and so some of the stories in the Epic of Gilgamesh are direct influences on either references in the game or some actions that you do, but also all of the art is directly inspired from artifacts that we as a civilization have found of this ancient civilization. So you'll notice that prayer statues on the ziggurat have big eyes, and they look up, and they're meant to worship your goddess Inanna in your place. And so we took like those interesting bits of information that people wouldn't know about the civilization, and we folded them in. We say that board gamers love it. It gives a little bit of a twist to what they're used to, especially if you're into Euro-style board games, strategy games, and then also families and like groups of friends. You want to get together on a couch, especially. That's why we just launched on the Nintendo Switch, and it's perfect for us because you want to sit down and play with your buds. Yeah, so people that like a good competition, but also for those that want something light and strategic. There are definitely strategic elements that you can dive into, but they're not necessary to play the game and enjoy yourself. It is our studio's first game, but we've all worked on things here and there. So I personally have also launched a few educational games through companies that I've worked with, either as a guest designer or as a freelancer. We have other guys on the core team that have released their own board games, or have worked or released like digital board games as well. yes, we have a variety of experience individually, but then as a company, Studio Olympus, this is our first. The core development team is 4 people, though we have assistance from a handful of freelancers. All of our art is freelance, though our team like adjusts it or works it in different ways. But we have an incredible artist and our music as well. We have a composer and then 2 voice actors. Well, we started it in, let's see, we've been working on Sumer since fall of 2014, though we had early ideas probably as early as winter of 2014. We'd been talking about it for a while, but we got started in like September, and then we built out our first prototype within maybe 3 weeks, probably less, and that was super different. It was actually more inspired by Mule. It was top down, and you had a lot of building management. You had to like defend your nation from barbarians and stuff like that. But it didn't quite work, and so then we went through a couple more iteration cycles, and by December we had the 2D platformer view. You're on a ziggurat and you're jumping around. At that point it was frenetic. It was quick and you were running around, but there weren't stops in the action. And so then I believe it was in February or January of 2015 that we finally made the decision to slow things down at intervals. So suddenly we introduced these beds where you wake up in the morning and then you do all your action, then you go back home and you have a moment to think and plot. And then when you wake up again, everything goes crazy and your friends are trying to do things that get in your way, and so you have to adjust. And that's when everything clicked. And from then, it was only a few months late until we were done with the core of the game. So by June of 2015, we were in the NYU incubator and we were starting to work on polish. And that was almost 3 years ago. And so at that point, we started working part-time. Most of us got jobs, and we just would work on it in our free time. And yeah, it's built up to this launch. It is programmed in C#, and we primarily develop with Unity. I mean, we're really grateful to have things like In Control and Audacity. So those are the main ones that we use often. And then games aren't just the development either. So I've spent quite a lot of time in like making videos to promote the game. So, you know, Premiere, stuff like that. But yeah, those are our mains, like In Control, some like video recording software, Fraps or OBS, yeah. Oh boy, did I. I mean, I never really brought a game fully to launch before, right? Like I'd done design and I finished my work and I helped QA or I helped finish a game off, but like I've done so much more in this than I ever thought I would have to at a company, and it's great. Like I wouldn't have it any other way. And it's some really exciting things, right? Like figuring out ways of design that you just didn't think were possible. Working with a team to create something that's like really innovative, but also kind of mind-boggling to people that you don't really get at the first pass, and then having to learn how to like teach that thing. So I've spent a lot of time working to improve our iconography or improve our coloring so that it's easier to like grok what's going on. But we've also spent time learning how to run a business or start one, right? And so there's been quite a bit of education on our ends. Yes, I mean, well, a lot of our development was spent in like a really cool community of New York City NYU game devs. where we would kind of work alongside other developers, and so sometimes there are out of development experiences of like playing Spelunky multiplayer and like just having a hoot with each other. And then there are also, you know, times when we would discover weird bugs, like when a worker like gets really big and then starts doing like a little dance like this and is just taking up the whole screen, or discovering just like new strategies in the game. We try to make fun games and then multiplayer, and so having the opportunity to like heckle each other, and yeah, it's always been pretty great. No, it's not. We've been showing Sumer actually at a variety of PAX shows for about 3 years now. We first came with Kickstarter in 2016, and then with Indie MegaBooth last year, and then we're with Indie MegaBooth again this year. We've also shown at PAX South and PAX Unplugged. Oh, absolutely, keep coming back, especially like through the Indie MegaBooth. It's the best little dev community I've ever been a part of. It's so fun. We're like a little family. And I like walked into the show floor on Wednesday and I was like, whoa, I missed this. I didn't know that I missed it. I love it here. It's really cool to be able to like talk to other developers and hang out with them. And so, yeah, I definitely recommend it, especially like, as a dev. And I'll certainly be back. We're very excited to share it, of course, and we hope that people will give it a go and let us know what they think. I guess the last thing would be, I really hope designers are inspired to make more games like it, because Mule, which was a big inspiration for us, was so innovative in its time, and then a lot of what it did at that time hasn't been explored. And we tried to pick up the mantle. We had new things to explore. We made a very different kind of a game, a kind of experience, but it has a lot of echoes of Mule. And we hope that that more designers will look at Sumer and look back at Mule and say, oh, I want to make something like this, and I want to make it this way, or I want to make it better. And yeah, so I'm excited to see what happens now.